All right. This is part 2, Know Your Ally, Britain. This was a request, as I said in the first one. I wasn't going to do this one next. I was actually going to do a video on toe porn, but I just thought, why not? So we're going to go ahead and do this instead. And I'll do that video alone on my own time. Did it get weird? Got weird. Video.
$1,700 miles in 122 days.
Wow.
1,700 miles of sand and wind and enemies. Once more, the people of Britain heard their church bells ring. More than 3 years earlier, they had been warned that this would be the signal of invasion. But long since the nightmare of the threat of invasion had passed. Now the bells rang out a song of thanksgiving, a song of victory.
Victory?
Now there's the plain and simple truth about Britain. But the fellow that calls the signals on the Axis team knows his only chance of winning is to split our team up. So his team plays a game at which they've had a lot of practice. A game which has conquered half a dozen.
Have you ever noticed that Hitler didn't have a chin? He's just a chinless idiot. Just thought I'd add that.
Countries for them. A game called Divide and Conquer. Men like these tell the British we aren't taking the war seriously. They tell the Russians we are letting them down. They tell the British the Russians will sell them out. And they tell us...
It is manifestly ridiculous for the warmonger Roosevelt to tell the American people that they have anything in common with the British. On the contrary, they are different in every respect.
So... we at one time were. So sorry, that's my footstool. So we're nothing alike. That's a stretch. You can't say that, but yet in the same sentence call Roosevelt a warmonger. You don't start, look, you're a real piece of shit, dude, but I love you. What? Pick a side?
Well, there are differences, that's true. For instance, we drive on the right side of the road. But in Britain, we go for baseball. They have a little number called cricket.
Very well played, sir.
And anyone who ever drank coffee over there knows why there'll always be an England.
Is your coffee all right, sir?
Give us a glass of half and half. Have you heard about it, boys? Give us another glass of half and half. Blimey, you'd have thought it happened to poor old Bill.
We had some relatives come over, and this is in like 94. They came over from England. And for my 500th video, I have a 23andMe, so that video is gonna cover that. So you'll be able to see how much of a mutt I am. But we had some relatives come over from England, and 94 or whatever, 95, maybe 96. Anyways, they wanted coffee. We want some of that American coffee. So we were at the store. My parents bought a thing of Folgers, which just, regular for the American audience. You can get the beans or the grind, and we just got the Folgers grind because I think that's all they offer. And we put that in there, and we were getting ready to check out, and they started looking through. And the guy's name was Basil. He starts looking through, and he goes, "Where's the coffee?" And we were like, "It's right here." And he goes, "No, that's not coffee." He went over and he got that freeze dried ground stuff, which I don't drink. I have tried it. In fact, I tried it just a couple years ago. I thought this would be something nice I could make real quick. Boy, that was a bad decision. Made me get a Keurig. I was like, I'll do it this way. I don't want to drink that stuff. They're like, yeah, it's freeze dried. It's delicious. So I kept trying to get him to drink some coffee from a pot of coffee, and he goes, it's good. And I was like, yeah, I guess the taste is vastly different from what you're used to from that stuff. So that's why we had relatives go over in England in 2000, and they didn't want to drink coffee. They were like, we'll just stick with tea while we're over here.
And another bloke here.
So I went in to sup my dinner, but it's that in buckets and I was getting swarge. Lad, that's bad.
Among Tchaikovsky's smaller pianoforte works are past.
Are they kidding, Jack? Why the cockamamie sprinkling some schmaltz mixed with celery tonic?
Why do they all mush so much with corn pone in their mouth? You all can't understand a word they say.
Yes, there are differences.
I don't know what
But
he
there
just
are
said.
a few things that Britain and America do have in common. And these are the important things of life. A little thing called a free representative government. We call it Congress. They call it Parliament. A little thing called freedom of speech.
In the next war, you've not got to go to it. They'll bring the war to you. And the thing is, if you take it from me, go and live at the Dorchester, because the trenches are just outside.
This meeting is called under the auspices of the American Workers' Party, an organization dedicated to the organizing of the working class of America.
Freedom of the press. Freedom of religion. They may not be important to Hitler, but all these things are the common heritage of John Q. Public and John Britain. 700 years ago, their ancestors fought for the Magna Carta.
No one will we deny or delay right or justice.
300 years ago, the Petition of Right.
No man shall be compelled to yield any tax without act of Parliament.
These principles came to our own country with the earliest settlers, and from them developed.
Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble.
We may make gags about each other's accents, but we speak the same language of freedom. Even during the American Revolution, when we were at each other's throats, the Earl of Chatham was free to say about us to the British Parliament,
"You cannot but respect their cause and wish to make it your own."
And that is why in the heart of London, alongside his great naval hero, Nelson, John Britain has put George Washington. And in Parliament Square, the most sacred spot in the British Commonwealth of Nations, Abraham Lincoln.
Of course, Hitler doesn't like this kind of talk. His job is to sell the British that we are a nation of money grubbers and gangsters. While in the next studio, he is selling us the idea that the British are gutless and dopes. The John Q. Public and John Britain are entirely different. All right, Hitler, where are these miners? Wales or West Virginia? These farmers, Devonshire or Wisconsin? These steel workers, Sheffield or Pittsburgh?
I have no idea.
These children, American or British, they live in lands which share the same hopes, the same ideals, and unlike the poor children of Germany, in lands where the truth is free.
But let's not kid ourselves. Britain is not the United States, and the United States is not Britain. For instance, we don't go in for this kind of thing. They do. But there's no mystery about that. Remember our grandmother's house? It was old-fashioned, out of date, patched and altered to suit each new generation, and filled with family relics even grandmother couldn't explain. Well, John Britton has been living in his house for a long time. And that's why to us, who live in a modern house that we built ourselves to suit ourselves, John Britton seems slow-moving and cluttered up with ancient traditions. Kings, for instance. The present king rode to his coronation in the same coach, to the same church, for the same ceremony as his ancestors did. But the job he took on is very different from theirs. There have been some changes made. For the British king can no longer make laws or impose taxes or interfere with government. He and his family work as hard as any other citizen.
When did they make that change? Anyone know? Just interested.
Doing the job that the people expect of them. Today, the king is the servant of the people and not its ruler. When an American is arrested and brought to trial, the bailiff calls his case
The People versus John Doe.
But if such a case were called in Britain, it would be
The King versus John Doe.
It means the same thing. Today, the British king is the symbol of the people. The British are great fans of the fellow in Buckingham Palace, but when they sing God Save the King, they're not worrying about his health. They mean God bless the British people. And the dukes and the earls? But in 1911, the people took away the last remaining power of the lords to block the action of the people's representatives. Dukes and earls don't run the country anymore. Today, there are only two people who do that. John Britton and his wife.
1911, is that when the king, queen were no longer allowed to taxation to love? Oh my goodness. I think I'm dying. My brain's not working. They weren't able to levy taxes, I meant to say.
They go to the polls, just as Mr. and Mrs. John Q. Public do here, and elect their representatives to the House of Commons. And there they fix the taxes and make the laws. And if John wanted to get rid of the lords, his representatives in Commons can at any time vote them out of existence. But John doesn't want to get rid of them. So he confuses us by keeping dukes and lords in a country where unions have long been accepted as an essential part of the democratic system, where the Labor Party, controlled by the unions, is one of the two great political parties, where longshoremen and railroad engineers have been ministers of the Crown, and where for 30 years he has had a system of Social Security even more extensive than our own. So when you read about Lord Louis Mountbatten or Lord Beaverbrook, former head of aircraft production, don't think they got their jobs because of their titles. They got them because they were the best men for the jobs. Just as Ernest Bevin, formerly a labor leader and now member of the War Cabinet, Herbert Morrison, who started life as an errand boy and is now Minister of Home Security, got their important jobs because they were the best men for them. With the things on the surface, the unimportant things, their John Britton and our John Q. Public differ. But the important part of their lives they run the same way, the democratic way, the free way.
But this gentleman never bothered about the truth. And when John Britton started carrying the war to Germany, he tried a new line.
The warmonger Churchill only wages this war against the German people to save the British Empire.
All right, let's take a look at that one. Here's the British Empire. And here's where the Germans were headed when Britain declared war. Does that look like trying to save the empire? Tackling Germany when it was headed into Poland and toward Russia? The one direction in which there were no British possessions? After Poland fell, Hitler hinted of peace with the British. This was the perfect chance to save the empire. But it wasn't saving the empire that the British were thinking about.
the position of His Majesty's government in respect of any peace offer by Hitler. We are not, in any circumstances, prepared to negotiate with him at any time on any subject.
And after Britain had been on the losing end, month after month, it had another chance to save the empire. Even now, Hitler thought John Britain would make a deal. We heard the British answer.
What kind of a people do they think we are? Is it possible they do not realize that we shall never cease to persevere against them until they have been taught a lesson which they and the world will never forget?
And let's take a look at this British Empire. The freedom we fought for in 1776, Britain has since freely given to Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. These are independent nations with their own parliaments, their own laws, even their own money systems, their own tariffs, which often work to Britain's disadvantage, their own armies and navies. Britain couldn't even take them into war if she wanted to. That's a problem they settled for themselves. Each one of the British Commonwealth of Nations declared war on Germany of its own free will.
Of course, no one ever talks about the British Empire today without mentioning India. And men of goodwill in Britain as well as other countries have been outspoken in their demands for Indian freedom. For no man who believes in democracy can support foreign rule of any people. But there are things that many of us do not know about India. For instance, that India pays no taxes to Britain, either directly or indirectly. That the Indians fix their own tariff laws, frequently to Britain's disadvantage. That of the Viceroy's Executive Council, 11 of the 15 members are Indians. And in the courts, 10 of every 11 judges. Furthermore, that no Indian is ever conscripted for service in the Army and Navy. It was voluntary enlistment that raised the Indian Army from 170,000 at the outbreak of war to 1.25 million today. And on the subject of India, listen to the words of Field Marshal Jan Christian Smuts. He fought against the British 40 years ago, was defeated in his fight, and still became the leader of one of the British Commonwealths of Nations, Prime Minister of South Africa.
India, if she will, can be free in the same way and by the same means as Canada, Australia, and New Zealand are today free sovereign states. Their peoples worked out a constitution for themselves. The same course is open to India, if the peoples of India will agree about the terms of a free constitution.
I'm going to end that here. That is part 2. And we're going to jump back in. I'm all out. Well, I'm done eating. I'm done snacking. I'm just relaxing now. All right. Do one more video and then I am done with my videos for the week. And I made more than I usually do. So it's been a good week. Yeah. Okay. I was thinking, I've done 13 videos this week. Well, 12. The next one will be 13. So, I'm going to do that one. I'm going to hiccup, burp, and you can put your socks back on. Stop stroking them toes, because the video's over. Like and subscribe.